Hello, hello. Welcome to the very first episode of the Where You're Planted podcast. Hopefully, this will be the actual first one that airs, but if not, this is the first one that we're recording. And I'm so excited to finally bring this to life. Before we jump into anything, I do want to quickly thank the sponsor of our first episode. It takes a lot to be the first sponsor of something that doesn't even exist yet. So this episode is brought to you by the Nomadic Pizza Trolley, a mobile, family, and veteran-owned pizza trolley based in San Diego, California. Each pie is handmade with care and intent and is authentically cooked by open flame in a stone oven. Nomadic Pizza Trolley can be found weekly around Ramona, but they really pride themselves on their ability and desire to come to you. The trolley is available and eager to hit the road in Southern California to serve your guests at your next party or event, complete with signature pizzas to match your theme or the guest of honor. Full disclosure that the family owners happen to be my family, including my very adorable niece. So I can attest to the absolute deliciousness of each pie. If you'd like to check out their weekly schedule, you can find them on Instagram at Nomadic Pizza Trolley, or you can visit them at nomadicpizzatrolley.com. I'll also include all of their information in the show notes. I'm so grateful for their support of this show, and like I said, I promise you, it is so good. If you need a food truck in San Diego area, call them. So now to the good stuff. Like I said, this is the Where You're Planted podcast. I want to just quickly talk about this podcast and how it came to life before we jump into our amazing guest today. A few months ago, God put it on my heart to do something that was totally outside of my job, completely just for the kingdom. And this is kind of what came to life. I didn't do it abruptly. I have been working on this for a few months. But with that said, I do want to just encourage anybody that's listening that if something is on your heart, to act with a sense of urgency. You should put thought and care into it, but God's word is urgent. The gospel is urgent. So don't be scared. Just jump in. I'm sure I will screw up today, but it's still going to be worth doing it. So with that said, I would love to introduce my very first guest. Today we have Luc and Kat Dimarzio with us.
Hey.
Hi, Luc.
What's
Hi,
up?
Kat. Luc and Kat are here to talk about the amazing topic of marriage, specifically a marriage between two people who are walking with God, a marriage that has a foundation of faith. So I'm so excited to dive into this, particularly because I am the farthest thing from an expert on this topic, because
Neither
I
are
am
we, girl.
I am not married, very single. But I love this topic because it is so complicated, but I think that there's so much good about it, and all we ever really hear about is how hard marriage is and kind of the not as great parts. That's kind of, I think, the theme of society is to downgrade marriage and talk about your old ball and chain, and there's just all these negative connotations of it. And not to say it isn't hard, but I know it is based on my conversations with you guys and other people I have had the pleasure to get to know as a couple. Before I hand it over to you guys, I just wanted to again thank you and tell the listeners that one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you two on for this topic is just the way you guys present yourself as a married couple. Luc and Kat both work in the church, which can be difficult just in life, but I think in marriage especially. They are very honest people and they don't sugarcoat it. But one thing that I've always admired is you guys are a united front. I've never heard you guys talk bad about each other. I've never seen you put each other down in front of at least me. And you seem to kind of have a grasp on, how to handle the hardship in a way that's still graceful to the general public. So
Wow.
with that said, I would love to know how you guys met and have you guys kind of bring us up to speed with where your marriage is at now.
You want to go first?
I don't know. We've told this story so many times though, so it's like we could probably just interject every once in a
It
while.
can be cliff
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah, we can do little blurbs on the
Well,
relation.
I always say first is like we met without really knowing that we met. She remembers it, but I don't remember. So I was on tour with a band in college. It wasn't really that cool, but it kind of was. But
It was cool.
and she saw me and like I guess we ended up playing cards or something one night.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast
So maybe
forward,
I should
like,
tell the story.
yeah, see,
I feel like I should tell the story.
well, she said Cliff Notes. I'm like, what do we? Yeah.
I can tell it quick. I've told it so many times.
Okay, go.
So I was, I'm a little bit younger than Luke, and I was at CIY.
Okay, hold on. A little bit? How
Yeah,
much?
He's 6 years older than me.
Okay. I think that is important
Yeah.
for later on.
Yes. Yeah. It does make a difference. It does have a lot to do with our relationship, at least the beginning. So I was in high school, getting ready to go into high school, and I went to CIY. I don't know if you know about CIY, but it's this high school camp. Thousands of high schoolers go. His band was the band. And every girl loved Luke. Because, you've heard him sing. Like, it's pretty good. So every girl was, like, hitting on it. Well, trying to hit on him. And I was like, wow, everyone, he's so old. Like, what are you doing?
I'm still kind of old.
It's true. But it's fine. I'm fine with it. And then, but I, was like, oh, he's so old. But I got their album, and I, memorized the whole album. Fell in love with Luke's voice. Fell in love with, all of his friends' voices. And then I think it was a year later, we had a winter retreat for our church. And so it was just a smaller group of people. I hung out with all of his friends. Luke was the awkward dude in the corner on his phone the whole time. But everyone still thought he was cute because if you've heard him sing, you know. And then I just knew who he was. And then my senior year of high school, wasn't going to church. And one night I just went to youth group. Hadn't been to church in forever. Pretty sure I was under the influence when I showed up, and I walked in, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's the Luke guy from Frontline." And
I never was the youth worship guy ever.
No.
This is one time, one time I was youth worship guy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Was
he
the
just
one
showed
that
up.
she was
He was the worship intern, but he had happened to it was his first week, so he was just doing all the worship for all the things. He was living with a family friend. I was like, "Oh my gosh, Luc DiMarzio, he's pretty cute." And she's like, "Yeah, everyone thinks he's cute, and he's got a girlfriend." And I was like, cool, he's old, so not a big deal. And then what was it, a few months later, MySpace was still a thing, so he hit me up on MySpace. He thought I was a high school coach. He did not know I was in high school anymore.
And on her MySpace, she said she was 99 years old.
It's true.
And so I said,
I
"You
do
look
remember this
pretty
part of the
good
story.
for a 99-year-old."
That was your pickup line,
That
right?
was his pickup line.
Yeah.
He said I looked great for 99 years old.
And how old were you actually?
I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just keep moving on from
Yeah.
that.
But here's the thing. All my friends were his age. All my friends were in college. All my friends were the coaches. So he just assumed I was not going to let him not. I was just like.
Because you were into him.
Oh, and what was the thing I said? Age is just a number.
Age is just a number.
I just kept saying age is just a number.
And I had friends eventually tell me, "You're
Yeah.
talking to Kat? She's in high school still." So I was like, "Oh crap!" So I told my boss, I told the elders, I told
You're not
hey,
trying to end up on some TV show.
Right, exactly. Hey, me and this girl, we like each other. Her parents knew that we liked each other.
Yeah. Well, and I grew up at this church my whole life since I was 2 years old. So everyone knew who I was. I was not some random girl that was just 17.
Yeah.
Everyone knew who I was, and they knew I was not the girl to be crazy.
And it was
or anything.
church.
It was church.
It was
And they were
church.
also like, Kat was down a weird path. So probably good that you guys are talking.
And then our first date was a week after she graduated from
Yeah.
high school.
John Mayer, third row, Red Rocks.
John Mayer
Wow.
and Ben Folds at Red Rocks.
That
Yeah.
is a high bar to set
Yeah,
for a
dude.
first date.
There's never been a better
It's not really that cool though. I borrowed money from her parents to get the tickets.
That's even cooler. That's
I
even
don't know if I knew
cooler.
that.
If you could afford it, it wouldn't be that cool because that just
Right.
shows the effort you put behind
Yeah,
it.
and they loved him the whole time, even
Yeah.
when we were told you guys can't date until she's out of high school. My parents loved him, and
Still
we
had me
hung
over
out.
for
We hung
dinner
out
and
all my
stuff.
friends
Yeah.
were his friends, so we hung out all the time. But
Yeah.
we basically our relationship started as friends. MySpace.
Tons of chats. I wish we could have saved the archive from all of our chats. It would be amazing
we
to
could
go
fill
back.
a book with. He
Yeah.
went through a breakup when we first met.
She was like my therapist for a little bit.
Yeah, and then because I was just
That
hot,
was
hot dude that can
so
sing.
romantic back then when you would log on to a social media, MySpace, AIM, AOL,
Oh my
and your
gosh!
crush messaged you back.
wow.
Oh
It was
man.
the
What a
best.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
There's that.
we probably could fill a book with the amount of conversation that happened before we actually dated.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knew we were going to date. We knew we were going to date.
It was just
Yeah.
a clock ticking,
yeah,
basically.
So then
it was killer.
So then we dated for 3 years. We got married in 2010.
hmm
And then we were married for about 3 years. And then we had twins in 2013.
We sure
on the
did.
best day of the year.
It's true. On
your
your
birthday. Yeah. You're
Literally.
the same age as our kids.
What was that? 3 days ago? And so I was
Yes.
like, it's no wonder that two of my favorite people share a birthday with like another amazing person. It's probably why I get you so much, because I'm like, these are my children. Like their vibe is your vibe.
Yeah, when your daughter is 18, just send her over to me.
Yeah.
I know how to
Yeah.
handle.
I mean,
my
God
goodness.
pretty much
August 12th.
told me the other day when I was having a moment. He was like, Molly. He's like,
That's Molly.
Yeah.
I was like,
Saw
oh,
it.
A little
thank God.
Molly. Wow.
Yeah.
So Kat jokingly refers to herself as a child bride. So
Yeah.
you got married 2010. So you were what, 20?
I literally had turned 21 2 weeks before.
Oh, that's not that bad.
Oh,
21 is.
girl, it was so. I was like, I would say like emotionally mature, but like spiritually a child. Like I was like all of my friends except for like Luke and like my few people I hung out with at church. All of my friends were not Christians. I was like going crazy, and then I married a pastor.
Well, but I think again that's like you're talking about your parents liking him and stuff. I
Mhm.
mean, if you have friends and you said you're going down a weird path and your daughter comes to you and she's like, "Oh, I really like this guy," and they ask about him, you're like, "He's a pastor." I'm pretty sure even if he was 40, they would have been like, "Okay, great. We can at least try this
Oh,
out."
My parents were like, "Do not break up with this dude." Like even up until like we were serious in the relationship, and I was like, it's amazing because God like put people in my life who could see that like there were two paths, like clear paths for me, and it was like Luke is like definitely what God is intending for you, and you obviously have this like clear path to go away from God, really. And I had so many people in my life like see what God had for us in the future almost, and speak so much wisdom into it to where I had to just like kind of trust it and go, I'm a child, I'm messed up, but like I feel like this is what God wants.
Right.
I'm gonna get married at 21 years old, and ended up working out. But it was definitely
Well, I think
tough.
anyone at 21 is spiritually
Oh
immature
my gosh.
because I don't think that you have enough life experience to, I shouldn't say everyone's spiritually mature, but I don't think anyone has reached the maturity that maybe you want to be
Right.
when you get married
Right.
or, and hopefully we can speak to that a little bit later, but I think marriage probably brings on a lot of maturity and probably very quickly
For sure.
because you have to make a lot of decisions very fast about who you're going to be in that
Mhm.
relationship,
Mhm.
and that can again go one of two ways.
Right.
But I like what you said about you had these two paths. I'm
Mhm.
sure there are a lot of people out there who chose the other path. I think there might have been, again, I'm single. There might have been someone at that age that I could have been with that maybe wasn't a pastor, but I could have ended up with, and it would have been great.
Mhm.
But I was the opposite. I haven't even really been in a relationship in 10 years. So I've kind of developed in my spirituality on my own, which is why this is so interesting to me because you really grew up like your whole
Mhm.
adult life has
Yeah.
been with Luke.
100%.
And you're 6 years older, but much of your adult life has been with Kat also.
Yeah.
So with that said, again, I'm asking you from a single person's point of view, but I think there's probably people out there also who maybe are in marriages with, someone who's not a believer or they're trying to encourage their, husband or
Mhm.
wife to go to church with them. Is there something early on because of your age disparity, but also being so young? Because even in your 20s, it's still young to
Yeah.
get married. It works, but it's still young. Do you think your faith played a part in it working out early on? Or is that something that was it more of a faith thing or was it more of just like a human thing? Like we're going to do this and keep going? Or did you have moments where you knew that you look back now, if you didn't have that foundation that you both share, that you wouldn't have made it at that age?
Mm. I would say for me, it was a faith moment where it felt like everything around me was saying, this is what God's intending. Would you say that you were maybe on the other side of that, the like relational part of it, where it felt like this is the person because you had many long-term relationships, you had gone
Yeah.
through a lot more life than I had. You kind of saw what was out there, and
I
had
don't really
not.
think it was that. It's more of like, I would be hesitant to say that anybody has like any one person. I think that whenever it came to you, I just knew that this is a person that there's no other person that I would want to figure out life with.
Mhm.
I
And
love
so
that.
that was like, that was it. Like legitimately the night I tried to propose to her, well, I did propose to her. She could tell I was going to.
I tried to break
She
up
was
with
trying to
him.
break up with me.
Why?
And that's
Because
what
I knew he was trying to propose.
And were you just scared of marriage
I
at
was
that
just like,
age?
you do not want that. Like, you don't
Yeah,
want
and I was
this.
like-
So
I'm
you
a
thought
mess.
you were a burden.
I just felt like I am no pastor's wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would say we were surrounded by a lot of like the classic pastor's wife, where it was like, yeah, I
Just
mean,
sunshine and
I feel like
rainbows
if
all the
you've been in
time.
church at all,
Yeah.
you know,
They
like,
didn't give you guys what you guys are giving me
Yeah,
and
right.
other people that
Not
we
at all.
surround ourselves with.
it was
Just-
not real. It was very like cookie cutter, very like Stepford wife, and I was so far from
No,
that.
it wasn't everyone that.
Not
we were
everyone.
around,
I don't
though,
want to
yeah.
say that. Like there were definitely people, but for the most part, I felt like the expectation
Was
like
that,
a
yes,
Stepford wife, and I could not provide that. Like I just felt like I couldn't. And so the night I knew he was going to propose, because like again, I had a lot of people in my life who were like, "Hey, don't break up with him," because
Get
like,
your nails done.
yeah,
Look
like,
cute on this
literally
night.
my father was like, maybe don't do that. And so I like showed up, and there was fancy dinner, and I was like, I don't know, I think that like like there was all these girls that were just, I just felt like, oh, they would be a great pastor's wife.
That is
And-
such a woman thing to do. Like
Right.
pastor's wife or not, I think that it's
Yeah.
so easy, and I'm sure men do it too. It's so easy to say, "Oh, there's so many other people better out there
Mhm,
than me," and
mhm.
you box yourself out of something good.
100%, and that's what I was trying to do. And I really, really tried. And Luke legit, he looked at me, and this is before he actually proposed, but I knew it was happening that night. And he said, I don't want to figure any of that out with anyone else except for you. And I
And
was
then
like,
an hour later, though, she was like in tears with me. So I get down on a knee, and she got down on a knee too.
yeah, I'm weird, guys.
She got down on a knee with
That's
me,
gonna
and
be
she's
me
like
so
crying
I did
next
not
to
do
me.
the classic, like, I was like, are you okay?
She was like a puddle right with me. Like I couldn't put words together, right? And so she wanted
Yeah.
to console me, so she got down on a knee as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
but that's also beautiful because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, here we are, we're
Yeah,
together, like
yeah,
we're doing this
exactly.
together.
It was a huge moment, probably spiritually for me, and like obviously in our relationship, because I feel like that's been a theme throughout. We've been married for 12 years.
Yeah.
We've been together for 15 years. Like the theme has been like, we don't, like, who else would we want to figure this out with?
Yeah,
Like
nobody-
it's not ever easy.
Neither
So
of us
who
still
else
know
would
what
wanna
we're
do that?
doing, but at least the
No.
other one's always there.
Well, and I'll say from, again, I'm going to keep providing the single person perspective that both of my sisters are married to wonderful men. And we've had a decent amount of hardship in the last 5 years or so in our family. And I don't feel a void a lot of the time, but I feel the void when we lose a family member or we're going through something super hard. That's when I say I'm envious of the idea that they have someone just to go through this with.
Mm.
It's not that they're shielded from the grief or they're shielded from the pain, but they have someone there just to kind of navigate things
Yeah.
with. Because even something as simple as, what do I do with my dog in an emergency? What do I do with, there's just like little things that having another person there just to help get you through the logistics, even if they're not feeling the same thing as you, I just think is super powerful. And it's, I think, what partnership is supposed to be. It's not the like, oh, I can't wait to go on these vacations and do all this luxurious stuff.
Yeah.
It's I'm so grateful I have someone to go through this with,
Exactly.
because
But-
everyone is going to go through hard stuff.
Yeah.
And again, I think God intended for us to go through life with someone in partnership,
Mhm.
in community, and all of that. Like relationship to me is a godly thing.
Mhm.
My therapist said something really cool a couple weeks ago. She's a Christian as well. She said, you can tell the health of a church by the health of the pastor's marriage. And that was like a really, I was thinking back to the churches I've been a part of and I've been to, or the churches you hear about, and it kind of rang true to me. And I think about our church, and in my point of view, it's very healthy, and you're one of the pastors, and to me, you have a healthy marriage. Did you have good examples in your churches you've been at before? And you don't have to, out anyone or anything, but did you learn through, people within your church mentorship and stuff about marriage and how you can navigate that as now a full-blown church couple, but also just when you were a pastor's wife?
I feel like I grew really close. We grew really close to a couple of married couples that like took us under their wing. We learned the good, bad, and ugly from them, and we were able to like formulate that into what works for us.
Mhm.
And I feel like, I don't know if we'd be here today without some of those people. Yeah.
Yeah. The couple he lived with when he first moved out to Colorado were friends of my family because I grew up at the church forever. So I knew who they were, and they were the people who you could just be yourself and you could talk about hard things. And they were even there for us in some really hard moments. And I do feel like we modeled a lot of that. And he was a pastor at the church we were from. And they were definitely like our mentors throughout the beginning of a relationship. And he ended up marrying us and everything.
Yeah.
But
They were great.
yeah,
They
I mean,
are
there's,
great.
and also on the flip side, we also had examples of married couples that we were like, let's not do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Which you need. We need to see
Yes.
both, because I think sometimes it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
If you
100%.
you might think your marriage is healthy, or you might think that you're not putting your partner down in person until you see someone else do it.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, I don't want to
Yes.
do that. Like
Yes.
now that I see it from someone else's point of view, it's almost like icky.
You're like, I don't want to
Yeah.
be that person.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
do you think in marriage, especially, a marriage that is, trying to be centered around God and faith, is mentorship important? Finding other couples, maybe not even mentors, just even peers
Mm.
that, embody the same values and want the same type of marriage that you do?
I think it's and any aspect of growth, you have to be part of a community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't see like this isn't something that was made to be done alone, right?
Yeah.
So just Christian faith in general, you need to be surrounded by people, and so especially if you're with a spouse, you have to find your people that are able to pour into you, and vice versa.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I feel like it can get twisted, like marriage, like you were saying, like what society
Yeah.
the view on marriage now is just, it's a lot of negative.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that like it's rainbows and unicorns, but to have people that can not just be like, well, yeah, you can just go do this and have your fun and whatever, and also still stay married. Like to have people who are doing the hard work of being people who follow Jesus and also committed to following one person for their whole life. It's like detrimental, I think, like truly.
it's a good segue to the way that, for the listeners, the way that Kat, Luke, and I know each other is we're in a small group together. I don't even want to really call us a Bible study group, because we
No.
just kind of are a
We're
group
just, like,
that does life
keep-
together
yeah.
at this point.
The small group ever.
It's the best group ever.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put that out
It
there.
really is.
We're very fortunate, and I have learned a lot. So, we joke around in our group that some days we're like level 2 Christians, some days we're level 7 Christians. And, all jokes aside, before I met these people, I was kind of lukewarm on the idea that I had to have a godly husband. I thought, as long as he believes in God and there's something there, I could make it work. But even just being in community with a group of people, not even in a relationship, where, Luke, you said last week when we left, you're just like, you guys are good for my soul. And that's how I feel every time I'm with you guys. And the idea of finding a partner who can do that for me excites
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
it feels right.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I see not just that, but the fruits of your guys' marriages, we have other amazing couples in our group. Even the not married couples, just the foundation that they have. It's really hard for me to imagine now not being with someone who is at least wanting to try as hard as me. Like none of us are the same day to day when it comes to our faith. So it's almost, I think the whole idea of, this equally yoked thing people talk about, it's just not possible. And I don't think it should be, because I think some days you need your partner to be more on fire than you are, and you need your partner to be
Yeah.
in a better place than you are. And maybe they're the one that turns on the worship song, or they drag you to church, or whatever it is. And you're not always going to be on the same page, but at least someone who's in the back of their heart and their mind always has that same desire
Yeah.
that I have. I think that's what's important to me. But beyond that, again, in these seasons of waiting for people like me, I have 2 questions. The first one is, what are the qualities beyond just a godly man or a godly woman should someone look for? Not just someone who goes to church. What are some specific things that maybe the Bible doesn't, outline in Proverbs 31? But what are things that you guys have found that have really been like your building blocks of your values that are why it works for you guys? And the second question, if you want to answer them both at the same time, is, what can someone like me in my season of waiting be working on within myself to be a better partner when that time comes.
Yeah.
You want to go first or you want me to go?
You can go first.
Okay. The first thing I thought of, independence is something that's big for us. So I told her way early on in our relationship that if we're not okay apart from each other, then we're not going to be okay together.
Yep.
And so that's
to that.
been kind of a building block for us. So, and I think it was like a revelation to her whenever she was like a teenager and I was telling her this,
17.
like, we are not to be codependent on each other. Like, and so
Well,
now,
especially that young, because that's all you
Right.
think of relationships.
Oh my
at
gosh,
that
any
age.
other relationship, like it'd be like a stab in the heart to hear that.
Right.
You're like,
Well,
excuse me, what?
And
Like, you
most of the
are-
time, people want the opposite. They
Yes.
think if you're not obsessed with them, because when we're young, we don't really understand love.
Mhm.
We associate drama and obsession and
Yes.
passion
yeah,
and all these like heightened things with
Yes.
love, and we don't understand that that's not normal or
yeah.
it's
not
not
intended.
feasible. Yeah,
Right.
But I would say even to this day, with us being grounded in that independence,
Mhm.
we are also now independent from our kids.
Mhm.
yeah.
And so like we have a relationship separate from our kids. And
Mhm.
our kids know that my favorite person in the world is her and not them.
Mhm.
And like they don't like it that I say that, but I remind them.
And someday, I mean, it's
and
kind
because
of
I can
like,
be a dad, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the order, right?
Right, it
God,
is.
your
Should be.
spouse, and then your kids.
Mhm.
Right,
Should be.
right.
But
But
it's like a pyramid.
Yeah.
You know, you have to. It trickles down,
Right.
not the other way around.
Exactly.
so we make sure that
Exactly.
we do things independent of each other, but
Mhm.
also independent from our kids. But when we are together, that it's meaningful. I feel like we still make time for that as well,
Mhm.
as we can with 2 9-year-old twins.
And I think the difference is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not that you don't want to be with each other. It's that you know it's necessary.
Yep.
Right.
And I when I look at the couples in my life that are successful and healthy, that's kind of what I notice is they
Mhm.
don't like necessarily want to say, oh, I need to get away from my husband for a weekend, but they understand, oh, a girls' weekend actually will do both of us very
Yes.
well.
It's
Not-
healthy.
yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing is that obviously grace has to
Yeah.
be a part of your relationship.
Yeah.
This idea that like I could marry her and then she'll change and end up being somebody else. People don't really change. And so
So
and it's not on me to change them. If they do
Yes.
change, it's something that God has done.
Mhm.
Or maybe I would just say if they do change, it's something that God has done.
Don't ever like sign up with someone hoping, like signing up for what you hope for them to be.
for their potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sign, because what you're getting
You're
is
pretty
what
much
you're
just getting that.
and
yeah.
that's probably going to be a common theme no matter what, no matter how healthy spiritually or emotionally they are. That's it. That's going to show up at some point. Like, know that that's what you're signing up for. Be okay with that.
Because we're human.
We're
Yeah.
We're going to
human.
revert back to who we are at our core.
Mm-hmm.
And we can grow, like you
Mhm.
said, and hopefully get stronger and better in areas.
Right.
But ultimately, like people, like you need to accept them for who they are
Yep.
when you meet them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And be like, this is what I'm signing up for, not in hopes that they'll become this. Yeah, not for the
I think
potential,
that's
but
a big thing
Yeah.
with young people, especially, is just this idea that if this guy just changes this, and this, it could work. So I'm going to just keep hoping that happens. And
Right.
same with women, like if she just does this, and that, but then maybe they change it for 2 months, but then they get married and it goes back, and they wonder why they're unhappy.
right.
Right.
And it could also go on the flip side where you're like, well, to fit into this box, I'm gonna change who I am
Yeah.
Right.
to make sure that we work. And I'll say, like, I was so young when I met him. I did a lot of that.
Right.
God was definitely faithful in that, and like
I
knew what
can
was
relate to
intended.
that
But like
fully.
where I shifted who I was and my priorities, and it really, at the end of the day, now I look back at it and I'm like, well, that actually really is who I am. But I was forcing it, and
Right.
like I said, God's been faithful in that. But I do think that some people, I mean, I've had friends who say like, oh, I couldn't even like look at a baseball game for more than 2 seconds without like wanting to cry. And now my husband's a baseball player, and here I am at baseball games every day of my life. And it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you can shove yourself into the box. You're not going to be comfortable there forever. There's
Right.
going to have to,
You're gonna
the
explode
box is
out of
going
the
to have
box.
to, yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
the box is
Right.
going to break. You're going to explode out of it. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, be aware of who you are and what your values are before you get into a serious relationship. Like, know who you are, like
Right.
down to the core. What are your values? What is important to you truly? Not
Mhm.
not in it's very hard to cut that off and like not consider the other person, but hopefully you can do it before you get into that relationship.
Yeah,
where
and
you
so-
just kind of go like, what are my priorities? And
well, and that kind of answers my second question is
Mhm.
just like really getting to know yourself.
Yep.
And understanding what you will and won't change.
Mhm.
So then you're not forced to do that. I mean,
Yep.
that's part of why I asked about your age earlier, because I feel like that's something that I'm on the other side of it. So I feel like at this point I better know who I am at
Yeah.
31. But you didn't have all that time to grow on your own, and so you almost had to grow together.
Mm-hmm. For
And
sure.
Yeah.
We did. And like I really do feel like it's been a blessing that the person I was like I thought I was trying to like cut off all my limbs to fit in the box. In reality, the person I am fit in the box already. And I was like, I thought it was this other person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you had been like not faking it, but
Right,
you
I've been
hadn't
living
been true
outside
to
of-
yourself for so
Mhm,
long that you didn't
mhm.
recognize yourself
Exactly.
anymore.
Exactly.
I talked about that recently with my therapist. I'm gonna keep talking about my therapist.
Girl.
No, it really is a blessing to have a Christian therapist.
Amen.
But just talking about authenticity and how if you change who you are too much,
Mhm.
you will miss the things and the people that God intended for you. Now, with that said, you can't really miss out on what God has for you, because it's
Mhm.
gonna just keep coming back
Yep.
until you
Right.
recognize it. But instead of torturing yourself with delay and disappointment and all these other
Mhm.
things that get in between you and the blessing, just be who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because and then people wonder why they haven't met someone or why it hasn't worked out. And it's, if you're not being yourself, that person can't even see they
Mhm.
could be
Right.
the right person for you, even they just
So
don't see
good.
that.
And that's
So
why I was
good.
going to say, like, that's why grace is the main thing, is because after all of that stuff fades away, you're left with who that person is.
Right.
And you still have to have grace for that person, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even when they're being their full, authentic, God-intended person.
Right.
They're still
There's
going to be a
still-
human, and they're still going to
Even
disappoint
pastors
you.
need
Yes.
grace.
Oh man,
Yeah.
he still smells weird sometimes,
Yeah.
guys.
I haven't had my smell fully back in almost 2 years because of COVID. So I actually have no idea what either of you smell
It
like.
smells so good.
I'm going to be honest.
Are you like trying to sniff us? Are you
No,
like-
I mean, I have a few smells that are normal. Coffee smells normal, thank goodness. There's a bunch of stuff that smells
That's
pretty
crazy.
normal now, but yeah,
It's kind of a blessing you don't get to smell.
it's good
Wow.
and bad. Like I got my dog after that, so I have no idea what he smells
Oh.
like. My baby
You
niece.
probably just have
So,
like
like-
accidents all throughout your house,
I
like, and you don't
have
even
no
know.
idea.
Trust me, I've thought of that. I'm like,
So like, if we show up to your apartment, we could be like, "Hey, Molly,
you've gone nose blind.
It smells like
Tell
pee
me.
in here."
No, that's all really really good because again, the seasons of waiting can be very not, I don't want to use the word painful, just slow.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But if I feel like if you use them wisely and work on yourself in those ways, even if you're not in a relationship, just how can I be more
Yeah.
graceful with my friends? How
Mhm.
can I learn to be accepting of when they have those moments when maybe they aren't at their best, and then like be okay with being alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's such a blessing.
Huge.
And I like that you guys pointed that out, because I think we are I mean, with texting and social media, like people are just obsessed with each other.
Mhm.
And then they wonder why, if they have, I used to say back when I was young, I would always say two busy people are the best couple. And that was back then. I thought just because, two ambitious people and two people who are working on
Mm.
something, they can't really get upset at the other one then. But really what I think it is two people that can be okay when the other person is working on something that is meaningful to them. That's not to say like, you should be out every night without your spouse.
Right.
It's just,
Right.
There's a balance.
if you want someone that has things that matter to them, there's gonna be times that you're gonna
Mhm.
have to be alone.
Well, and
And-
you would hope that that's like something you want for that person. Like I don't want
Yeah.
him to like become like when I was doing hair, like I'm not trying to get you to come to hair show. Like I don't want you to be passionate about that. Like that's my thing. That's my lane.
Then he's trying to fit
And-
into the box.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And like that's not going to fulfill him. Like I want him to be a full person, and if he wants to come, cool. But
Yeah.
we're both very intentional about our independence, and again, there is a balance. Like you can't just be like, oh, I live this life and she lives this life.
No,
And
yeah.
then sometimes we
I think
sleep
you
in
have to
the
have
same
more in common than you do apart. Not to
100%.
say like your hobbies have to be the same, but you have to like enjoy doing the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that, I think that would get difficult.
bed. Yeah.
Do you think if you guys met today, you would still
Ooh,
like go on a date or be interested in each other?
that's a great question.
I don't know.
That's so interesting. I mean, that's so interesting to me because I was so young when I met him, went to the same church my whole life, He was like the first single dude that wasn't like
Weird. We can just say it. Church shoes can be so weird.
No,
like
I'm weird though.
or smelly,
I'm
or like
still
he was
weird.
just like a cute, like,
especially at that age, church guys can be
Yes.
very weird.
yeah. And I was so young, so it was like, oh my gosh, he's everything. So like now that I'm older, and also I didn't know who I was at that age.
Yeah.
So luckily we have a relationship where we're like in a safe place where we can grow and mature spiritually, emotionally, all of the things. And where there's space for that for us, where it's not like, wait a minute, you've changed and I'm out. Like that's not our relationship. But I it's hard to know. Like,
Are you guys graceful with
It's hard
each
to-
other's spiritual journeys? Do you like, obviously you kind of have to show up sometimes even when you might not want to
Right. Yeah.
for your job. So I feel like
Mhm.
that's an aspect of it that's a little unique, but if one person is kind of in maybe a rut,
Yeah, I think early on in our relationship, I like took it upon myself. I'm gonna be the spiritual leader in Kat's life, and we're gonna wake up every morning and read the Bible together. And no, that's not it.
because my
that's
vibe was
not
like,
it.
I'm so tired.
Yeah,
I
we can't. It just was so forced.
Yeah.
And again,
Yep.
like, for some reason, like I just said, like you can't change the other person.
Mm-mm.
So that was all me trying to change her, right? It's on God to change her.
Mhm.
And so I just had to stay the course and set an example. This is what I'm going to do. And eventually she had to just figure it out on her own.
Mhm.
There's still some grace. Yes, there is some grace around that. Like,
yeah, because I can imagine people think going into a godly marriage that maybe they're not in one yet, they think it's going to be this, it's just like you're riding on a unicorn the whole time. You're both just like
Right,
on
no.
fire for God.
No,
And
the devil wants to take that down really
well, and the
quick.
devil hates marriage.
Right.
So
Right, right.
I'm sure it's even harder in marriage than as a single person, because that's like even elevated from a
Right.
single person who's coming to God. I promise this is going to get to a question, but I'm going to give this example just because I want you guys to know what I mean. So I'm going to probably talk about my dog a lot on this
Love it.
podcast.
Love Carlos.
Carlos.
What a vibe.
Because he's my family. Don't have
Love
kids.
him so much.
Don't have a husband, but I got a dog a year and a half ago. I adopted him. He had a lot of adoptive dog issues. He was anxious. I mean, the level of work I've had to do with him just to feel comfortable having anyone around and stuff has been a lot. And I remember there was a point about 6 months in when I had the hardest week of my life with him. I was crying. I felt very alone, and I just kept saying to him, "You need to listen to me and follow my rules and be obedient so that you can have a better life." And I still say that to him. We have rules, so we have structure. If we have structure, you can go more places with me, and then your life is better. And I was sitting there, and it just like hit me in the face. I'm like, oh, that's what God thinks about with me. He's like, if you
Wow.
just obey me,
Mm.
this will get better.
I think I've heard you say it before. There's freedom in obedience.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
we were talking about a group this
Yeah.
last week, and it's
And,
like, dang.
early on in my spiritual journey, I looked at all the rules, quote unquote. I don't even like to call them that, but the advice that we get
Mm.
as sacrifice, and it's I'm gonna lose things.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how much I would gain.
Yeah.
But I learned so much about God's love for me
Mhm.
through my experience with my dog, and I think that's a big reason that I was matched with him, and I was very happy with that epiphany, because I think about it all the time now when I'm kind of doing the same thing over and over and not getting a different result. I
Mm.
just think about God up there, like, just sit. Like, I told you to sit, and you're not
stay
sitting.
and listen.
Has marriage taught you guys anything about God's love for
Mm.
you?
Oh man, marriage, parenthood, but marriage for sure, because it's like, it's one of those where the natural, I don't know, the human need to explore, or the human need to go against the grain, or the human need to just like rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like, because we are a Christian couple, I do feel like the wake against us is stronger sometimes when it comes to that kind of stuff. And when we can obey what God has called us to, and recognize like, this is not a rule to keep you from things that you're missing out on. This is a moment that you can take advantage of to fulfill your life in a deeper way than you could ever imagine. Does
I
that make sense?
I think that a lot about like infidelity
Mhm.
and lust and stuff. I remember thinking about my grandparents when my grandpa died 6 months to basically the day after my grandma died,
Wow.
and they had only basically ever been with each other. They were married for over 60 years, and so I was thinking about it, and they were so funny. They would bicker and they would fight, and that 6 months to the day they almost died was Valentine's Day, and so they never spent a Valentine's Day apart. But they were so funny because they were not the romantic, lovey-dovey, over the top. They didn't. It just wasn't. We laughed that we needed to put a hidden camera in their house and make it a reality TV show because they were just their bickering was hilarious.
Mhm.
But I thought about it when they both passed away. I'm like the level of love that they must have experienced from everything they overcame together in 60 years, all the temptation they resisted, all the lust they resisted, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where when my grandma was gone, my grandpa like literally couldn't live
Mhm.
for much longer. Like he
Yeah.
literally like his heart stopped. Went for a nap and his heart just stopped.
Oh.
Wow.
And like so in my opinion it was a broken heart, which
Yep.
again, if you know my grandparents, that's hilarious because that's just not who they were.
Mhm.
My other grandparents, yes, obsessed with
Yeah,
each other.
Yeah.
These grandparents were, but like that's not that's not the movie definition of love. But then I think about they lived in the same house for 60 years.
Yeah.
They raised their kids, their grandkids, and then my grandpa's in this house alone now, and it's the house that it's her house.
Mhm.
It's just not, it's not home without her in it. And I just kept thinking about how that is what I want to think about when I'm in a marriage, and maybe those things come into your head, whether it's temptation, lust, the desire to wander, not even just to another person, but just something different.
Right.
It gets boring. Like
Yeah.
good relationships get boring,
100%.
and
Not like I love you, but
we have an
No.
audience who's agreeing right now.
I mean, like that's life, man.
Yeah, and but I'm gonna use that, I feel like, as my compass.
Yeah.
Is just imagine 60 years from now, if you're like the things that you have overcome together, nothing can compare to. We don't even
Mm-mm.
know what that love is like because
Right.
none of us are there
Right.
yet.
Right. Well, and that love is so much stronger when you can overcome those things instead of just going like, well, that was it. Bye.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's so much stronger, and you see, I mean, there's always a lesson in hardship. So, I mean, it really is like what God has intended for you sometimes comes with hard lessons.
Yeah.
And what's on the other side is like full, meaningful, deep, not cheesy, because
We're not cheesy.
we are not cheesy. We're not
No,
those
you guys
people
are
that are like,
not.
"Meh."
I can
Like it's
attest
just
to
like
that.
not. I'm like, ew, gross. Like I love you, but like I'm just like, it's really, it comes down to like the heart behind it, and like that's the long-standing stuff.
What is the most fun part of marriage?
Ooh. I feel like the team part of it. We were talking about how you were talking about just having someone to like be there when things go wrong, or like when you lose someone, or when you're going through something, just having a teammate all the time. Even maybe if you don't want a teammate, like you might not want the teammate, but
Yeah.
like God wants you to have that teammate, and
Right.
it's always like for the better, and it's always beneficial, and just knowing like you're not alone in life. I think that's probably the most fun thing. I mean, fun.
I mean, there's a lot of
It's
things
like
that are fun
there
about
are
it.
there are. But we're gonna keep it PG, babe.
That is a rule.
We both looked at each other. We're like, don't do it.
Oh man.
PG fun activities.
I mean, we've been blessed to. We're both into the same things. We love music. We love
Binging TV
um,
shows.
binging TV shows.
Yeah,
we
we've
love
only talked
people.
about Luke singing, but Kat also sings,
I
just
do,
so everybody
but
knows. So
not
they
like
have
that.
that in common, which I think
That's
is
true.
a big deal.
It is, and it's funny because when I sing, a lot of people don't even know we're married, because it's like for me it is an independent, like it is a thing
I
that
like
I've
that,
loved
yeah.
forever. He did encourage. I actually didn't even sing in front of him until after we were married, which is insane. But it was
She was,
us.
and
Yeah.
she was in music school when we were dating.
But I
she
like
was-
would not sing in front of him.
Why was that? Were you nervous of what he would think, or was that just something you wanted to keep for yourself?
No, I was like terrified. I mean, you've heard him sing.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those that's like, well, I can sing. I know it's a gift I have, but like it's hard to beat that. And so for me, I was also so young, so I was like so insecure and like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll never be as good as him. But realizing that like my gift is my gift, and it's not supposed to sound like his. It's not supposed to be that. So he finally encouraged me. We were married for what?
Probably over a year.
Wow.
And
This is
then-
blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were together for 4 years. I had been in beauty school, or not beauty school, music school. I was
Music
also in
school.
beauty school, but music school, and like would not sing in front of him. Didn't sing in front of anyone. It wasn't just him.
Like she had a
That's-
guitar in her room. I remember I would always go grab the guitar and play songs and goof around on the
You
guitar.
knew she could sing.
And I knew she
Yep.
could sing and
Okay.
even play guitar at that time.
Okay.
And she never
Wouldn't
did.
do it. I
It's
was
so funny
afraid.
to me because I would give anything to be able to sing. But I say that, and I would probably be the same way as you. I'd
Just
probably
take some singing lessons.
listen. My
Luke says
family's gonna
everyone
listen
can
to this,
sing.
and they're probably gonna yell at you for telling me to do that. 'Cause
Can you please sing?
it's not gonna happen. My older sister can sing, and she's amazing. She can also act, and like, she's just
Mm.
like one of those very talented people. So she's the one that got all of that. Literally, like no one else in our family can sing. She got every single ounce of creative talent. But I can give you tickets to football games, so I'm still one of the
Right.
cooler
Like
Right,
people.
right.
you definitely went in other areas.
Are there any ways that marriage has strengthened your faith?
Oh man, you can go first. I'm processing.
Man. Yeah, I think that just like all other aspects of life, there are valleys and there are mountaintops and there are even plateaus. And through all of that, God is faithful, and it's just understanding where he has you and why he has you there and continuing to lean on him even if it doesn't make sense. I'm not sure. You know, when we get married, we take a vow, right?
Mhm.
That like in sickness and in health, for better or worse, till death do us part. And so just those three statements right there, there's a lot of really hard stuff that is involved in all of that.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so-
I honestly, if I'm being totally honest, I think about that. You know, I see people who their spouses become completely debilitated or they have to just become their full-time caretaker. I know people who have had to do that, and it's so admirable. But
Mhm.
again, I would hope that at that point, your love is just so deep. It's not even a question.
Mhm.
Right.
And going back to my dog, I think about when I first got him, I thought this is going to feel like such a burden. And then when you just love someone so much and God trusts you with their life and their heart,
Mhm.
it does not feel like work. You just
Yep.
do it.
It's interesting
Yep.
because I don't think of love in like this gushy, emotional,
I'm
like,
so shocked.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think of it as like this is a commitment, this is a covenant that we have made, and so this is like we
This
got
is
to
it.
continue to put
Mhm.
one foot in front of the
Yeah.
other,
Well, and
like even
that
if it doesn't look right.
that is the crux to me of why a godly marriage is so attractive to me, because I want to know someone is taking that covenant seriously, not the contract, not the legal side of it, the
Mhm.
covenant,
Mhm.
the thing that we said before God.
Yep.
Right.
Because I know that when something's going to be hard in my life, whether it's in relationship or not, I know where I go, and I
Mhm.
want to know where they're going to go. And if we're going to the same place, we're probably going to be able to come out of it with hopefully the same outcome.
Mhm.
And we're going to fight for it the same way, because we're not fighting just the worldly battle. We're
Right.
fighting so many, the spiritual battles, all the other things that happen, like you said earlier, with marriage, because the enemy hates it.
Mhm.
But if you're working from the same playbook and you're operating from the same thing, in my opinion, you have a greater success
Man.
rate.
Yeah.
But again, I go back. That's to me a truly godly marriage. I think that a lot of people are looking for someone who goes to church, someone who says they are, and that's why I asked you guys about those qualities, because someone can say that but they don't live it. And I think that's what gets scary, is trusting someone is who they say they are within the church and within their faith, and then discovering that that's not actually how they operate. It's
Right.
just all a facade or something.
Yeah.
So those qualities to me are more important than someone just saying, I believe in God,
Yeah.
or I go to church. Yeah, I'll go with you to church. Like, I want to see how they like actually.
Yeah. Because anyone can say those things. Anyone can say.
Someone
believe
on
in God.
another podcast said you should, when you're dating someone, pay attention to how they react to your good days and your bad days,
Mm.
Yep. That's good.
because your good days will tell you actually a lot more. Because if something good happens for you, do they immediately go to how does that affect them? Are they mad that you're going to be gone more? Are they mad that you're going to be busier? Are they mad that you found success and they didn't? Like those types of things. And hopefully a godly person will be with you on that journey until they'll just be happy for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. That's good.
Well, you guys, this has been amazing.
Oh man, this is the
I
end.
just feel like I
Well,
could talk to you
we
forever.
gotta wrap it up. We can talk
We
forever.
can.
We can do a part 2.
cool.
We'll see what people want to. Maybe I'll bring you guys in to talk about parenthood.
Oh no.
Parenthood of twins.
No, we have no idea.
Preteens.
No.
I feel like we could speak some
You
wisdom
guys
into
do know
it.
what you're doing, and
And
you guys
don't-
know what you're doing in marriage. You know what you're doing in parenthood.
Only by the
Just
grace,
the grace of God.
God.
That's the thing too. Like you were talking about the yoke being equally yoked earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And if two people are unequally yoked, that's one thing. But it shouldn't just be between the two people. You have God helping with that yoke too.
Yeah.
So there's three people carrying that yoke the whole time. So
Yeah.
that's the problem with being unequally yoked is like there's no third person in the picture.
That's
Right.
good. That's why we bring pastors on this podcast.
Yeah.
Right
I
there.
like that.
Drop the mic.
Yeah, full disclosure, not a pastor, not even close.
Same.
I'm just a regular civilian who loves
Same.
God,
Same.
learning as I go.
Mhm.
I like a level 2 Christian.
No. No, girl.
I've been through Rooted.
You
I'm
got,
at least-
you got a podcast about
Yeah,
being a Christian now,
that's
so
Yeah, but you
I'm-
also drop like massive wisdom on us, like
Yeah,
all
it's
the
good.
time
You're
at
It's
small
not-
group.
Sometimes I walk out of Bible study or I walk out of a conversation. I'm like, I don't even know where that came from.
Right.
And that's
It
how you
just
know it's
gets
God.
like dropped in your head, and then you're like, I'll never be that eloquent about that subject again.
Right.
yeah.
Ever.
That's because it's God.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, but he speaks through you a lot, like seriously.
Well, I'm definitely going to have you guys back because, again, you're amazing. And this is why our small group is the best group ever, because we could literally talk
We could.
forever.
How long have we been going, man? That's crazy.
Almost an hour, but I
Ah.
do
Look at
have
us.
Okay.
some light, fun questions
Okay.
to ask you both before we go. I'm going to ask you, say the question, then you're both going to answer.
Oh.
I don't care who goes first.
You can go first.
All right, Luke, what's your favorite song right now?
Right now,
Mhm.
this is so hard. I listen to new stuff every week.
I
Yep.
gave you this question ahead of time.
You did, but
We,
I
like,
read it
talked
wrong.
in depth about this
Yeah, we
question.
talked about this
'Cause both
because
of
I
us are
read
like
it
this.
wrong. So, yeah. So I'd say my favorite song right now, just because it's top of mind, "Spread the Ops" by Lecrae.
Okay. Luke is a hip hop or Christian hip hop connoisseur.
Mhm.
Everyone, if you're into that, that's the guy to go to.
It's true.
Kat, what's your favorite song right now?
Can I give two answers?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no rules.
My Christian answer is Pharaoh by Brandon Lake.
Okay.
That whole album is crazy, but
So
Pharaoh
good.
is oh.
That's such a good song.
And then just on the total flip side, Woman by Doja Cat.
I mean, we don't have to only listen to Christian music.
No, I love Doja Cat so much. Like it's like
People
means-
just turned off the podcast now.
They're like,
they
ew.
don't, they
Nope,
don't listen
nope.
to all
Level
Christian
2
music.
Christians.
Yeah.
I love Jesus. I'm sometimes like that.
What is the best book you've ever read? Besides the Bible.
I really just wanted to say that to be annoying.
Am I still going first
Yeah,
with
you're
this?
going
Okay,
first. Go
so the first one that came to my mind is The Client by John Grisham. And it's
Okay.
probably just the one I've read the most. I
I've read that,
really
actually.
kind of am infatuated with the whole like gangster persona, but then like you throw a kid in the middle of it that's like messing with it. It was so fascinating to me. I read it probably like 7th or 8th grade, but then I read it probably 4 or 5 times since then. It's a great book.
I love when books stick with you like that. You're like, I don't really
Yeah.
know why. It's my favorite. I just
Right.
remember being obsessed with it.
I know there's better books. Like I love Stephen King too.
I said your
and
favorite book,
I
not the
know.
best book. So you
I know.
answered that
Right.
great.
Because I could
That's
say
up
Twilight,
there.
but I'm not gonna say Twilight. I'm
I
just
won't.
saying.
Actually, there are rules on this
You're like,
podcast.
no
Twilight.
No
way.
Twilight.
Just kidding. I feel like so I went for a long time without reading books, but I'm on this kick of reading crime fiction, kind
Ooh,
of
same.
mystery.
I'm in like
Oh,
suspense
yeah.
mode right
Yeah,
now.
I read that one that you told me about.
Okay.
What's it called? False Witness by Karen Slaughter. She has a whole bunch of books, but False Witness was the first book I read of hers, and
And that's the best
Killer.
book you've ever read. And it
Uh-huh.
was like last month you read it.
also the Bible.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not a huge reader. I'm like a podcast audiobook.
I was gonna say, do you guys
person.
actually read or do you listen?
He
I'm like
reads.
half and half.
Mhm.
I only read.
If I listen, it's more like a podcast. Like I'm listening to it like it's a podcast. I
Yeah.
really do like to hold the actual
Same.
physical book.
I can't sit still long enough to do
I
that.
love books. I love the smell. I love the touch. I love all of it.
Not that I don't listen to audiobooks, but I just treat them more like a podcast. You know what
Right.
I'm
I
saying?
know. Yeah. There's certain books I would listen to on audio just because of the format.
Right.
It would make sense. I don't want to listen to fiction on audiobooks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I
Plus,
treat it
I'm
like
weird
a
about
podcast.
voices.
Oh, so am I though.
Yeah.
I won't do audiobooks for some reason.
Voice actors.
Yes. What is your ideal date night?
So I want to throw a little wrench in that
Oh,
because I would
wow.
say our ideal date is probably not at night. Like, yeah.
Okay. Ideal date.
Yeah.
Date.
like
date,
I think
date
I like
night.
date.
so I totally think we're like brunch people. We're like matinee people, like brunch and a matinee.
I think that's
Like,
just
I
like
feel like
being in
that's
your
pretty-
30s.
And just like
Because
being
you said,
old. Yeah.
because you said ideal. You didn't
Yeah.
say like what is your like dream date night. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, so ideal. I'd say we go to brunch, maybe like Hash House, a go-go, like that place is
Mhm.
great. And then, you know,
Good old-
movie somewhere. Yeah.
No baseball game, no football game.
I mean,
That's
yeah, if we're in Chicago, we'd go to a baseball
Yeah.
game. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
There'll be baseball here soon, don't worry.
Okay.
It's true. I would say dinner, drinks, comedy show.
Mm.
I love a good comedy
Yeah,
show.
that's fun too.
It's a long
Friends.
day if you do both of yours in the same day.
It's
It's a
true.
long day.
Yeah, I would
I'm pretty
definitely
sure
be
we've
taking a
probably
nap.
done it like that before
We have,
too, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely with a nap in between.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about living in Vegas, or just your favorite thing about Vegas in general?
There's just so much to do. Like, we've only lived here for 3 years, but it's like, this is the only place we could get a random call like, hey, I've got tickets to the Grammys. Do you want to go tomorrow?
Yeah,
Or,
that was pretty cool.
you
That was
know,
insane.
Or like, hey, I've got tickets to the Knights playoff game. Do you want to go right now? Like, it starts in an hour. You want to go right?
Well, and
like,
it's so cool because you go to those things and you see 10 people you know.
Yeah.
right.
It's like a small town here.
Right.
So you go and you're like, I could go to a Knights game alone and I'd run
Right.
into 10 people I
Right.
know.
Well,
So
yeah.
I just like, I like that. And we like the big city because of that. We were like that in Denver too. We would
Yeah.
always find things to do. And so I think that's just part of how we roll. So,
Mhm.
but Vegas just has a lot of opportunity to just be entertained. We like
Yeah.
entertainment. We like creativity. We like shows and
Mhm.
everything. Yeah, we like all the stuff.
Yeah. I would say community for me is like lived in the same place, went to the same church my whole life. I have never had a community like this. Like people are just real. You can love Jesus and still do life in a real, honest, authentic way.
It's great.
And I just have never experienced that before. And so I don't know if it's specific to Vegas, but for me,
I
that
think
is my favorite thing.
it is kind of specific here. I'm sure there's other places like it, but I think I shared this with you guys, but I'll say it again. I think the reason that the church community works here is that everyone is going because they want to, not because
Mhm.
they have to.
Mhm.
There's other cities, other states, other places where people go because they just want to be seen there
Yeah.
and they don't want to talk about why they're not there. Whereas nobody cares if you go here. But that's the
True.
good thing. Like no one really cares. But then I look around and I see everyone from my gym. I see everyone that I just know
Yeah.
from the industry, even the nightlife industry. I think that's why community works here and it's healthy.
So authentic.
All right, last question. Well, last easy one. Next place you want to visit?
Is this together or just on our own?
It can be together.
Together.
Next place you guys want to go?
We've never been out of this continent together. So just
Abroad.
it would be awesome to go abroad.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm a pastor, so got to save up for a few years on that one.
That's true.
But yeah, where abroad though? I don't know.
The Bora Bora.
Bora
Always is my
Bora,
answer.
Italy.
There you
Something.
go.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Pasta. Cool.
Okay, you go. What's yours?
I said,
Oh, you
yes.
said
Bora
okay.
Bora.
You agreed.
Now
Anywhere.
you know, Luke. Now
Yeah.
you know.
There we go.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up quickly. Luke, Kat, where can listeners find you?
You have more of a platform, babe.
Oh, you can find me on all my socials at Luc DiMarzio on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, decently active on Instagram. And you're just gonna get a lot of baseball and hip hop, and yeah, and maybe some pictures of my kids and our dogs. So
Mhm.
yeah, but Luc DiMarzio. You can see my name wherever you're listening to this. You'll see
It'll either on the screen or in the show notes.
on
Yeah.
the screen or in there
That's
you
what
go.
the
And then you can find Kat on his page.
yeah, pretty much.
See Kat Rock.
Yeah, because I'm like, I'm not a social, like I love social media, but
Yeah.
I don't have a
Luke
platform.
has his thing he has going
Yeah,
on.
I don't.
Well, thank you guys again. If you are listening to this or watching it, please subscribe if you're on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple. Please rate. You can subscribe on there also, but rate, review. That makes a huge difference. If you would like to sponsor an episode, reach out on Instagram. It's at Where You're Planted Podcast. And I will see you guys next time.